So today, once again, will be the third class out of the 7 in total that altogether constitute the color course. And yes, to briefly go over what we've talked about in the first and second, now we talked about the fact that in Korean, there are colors that can only be nouns, and there are colors that can be nouns and adjectives. And of course, we didn't just look into the list of colors that fall into each category. Of course, then we talked about, technically, then how would you use those colors? Of course, if you have a color that can be a noun and also an adjective, well then, you can use it as a noun and you can also use it as an adjective. However, if you have a color that can only be a noun, yes, we also took a look into how you're going to use those colors in situations in which you would usually use them as adjectives in English. Okay, so you had to find an alternative, right? Because yes, colors that can only be nouns can only be nouns. Okay, but it didn't mean that you are severely limited in how you can use those colors because yes, we did take a look into those alternatives that will allow you to use those colors that can only be nouns, once again, in situations in which you would use them as adjectives in English. Okay, so that was number 1 and number 2. Okay, so today the third class will be about now focusing on, well, the colors that can be nouns and can be adjectives. Okay, so because now specifically these colors usually that can be nouns and also adjectives. Now, usually these colors are the colors that have a lot of nuance variations. Okay, so if you are using red, now what version of red are you using? Now, this actually ties into, this is actually related to, well, actually, yes, it is exactly what students do when they get to a chapter called Play with Words. Okay, so what I mean by play with words, I mean something very, very specific. It's to change the nuance of a word just by simply changing the version of it without adding any kind of a word or some kind of a suffix. Okay, so that's why sometimes using these variations can be tricky because you are not going to add any kind of a word to describe exactly how the variations differ from each other. For example, let's say I want to say it wasn't just red, it was the scary type of red. You know, when you see like blood all over the place. I'm sorry if it's too disturbing. Okay, so if I just add another word to exactly describe what kind of red I'm talking about, well then, yeah, I'm giving you a hint. It's not a hint, it's actually just a blatant word to just blatantly describe exactly what kind of red I'm talking about. But once again, when it comes to playing with words, in other words, changing the nuance by just simply changing the version, the tricky part of that is you either know the version or you don't. That's it. There are no clues given. For example, let's say, so 시뻘겋다. This version, it's not just red, it's a very vivid, but in a negative kind of a way, to be a little bit more specific, a scary kind of red. So, are there any hints here that tell me that, let's say I have no knowledge on, well, the color red, but is there still a clue, a hint that tells me that this must be very vivid, negative in a scary kind of red? There are none. For example, someone can say, is this 시? Does this mean scary, negative, or very vivid? So therefore, can I apply it to other situations, such as like 시 똑똑하다? So 똑똑하다 would be another adjective, smart. Okay, so let's say I was talking to someone and I'm gonna say, oh, he was smart, but he was scary smart. He was so smart in a scary way. Okay, so does this 시 work as a clue? So therefore, can I use it like this? 시 똑똑하다? No, it does not work like that. That's what I mean by you are given no hints. So no kind of a word added and no kind of a suffix that is added either. So you either know what it is or you don't. Okay, so That's why I always say, when it comes to listening and understanding, I always say, don't trust vocabulary that much. Until you feel like you know all the variations of a certain word, don't trust vocabulary too much. Because even if you are listening to someone saying red, well, you never know which version of red you will get. So if you are so fixated on the idea that if I am listening to red, I have to get 빨갛다, then that could really throw you off. Because what if someone is going to say 벌겋다 or 불그스름하다 or 시뻘겋다? Now, the moment you start second guessing yourself, oh, I thought that red sounds like 빨갛다, but what's this? So I must not be listening to red then. Then I don't know what I'm listening to. So therefore, now I'm completely lost. Now then, of course, yes, you are completely lost. So that's why I say, until you feel like you know all the variations of all words, don't trust vocabulary, more so trust your guts and context. Okay, so usually if you feel like, according to this situation and context, and according to what I feel, I should be getting red, well then, even if you don't hear exactly the version of red that you were expecting to, trust your guts and context. Don't start second guessing yourself. It must be a different version of red. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so once again, playing with words means changing the version of a word to change the nuance without adding any kind of a word or suffix. And the tricky part of it is there are in large two reasons. Number one, you are not given a clue, a hint. So you either know that version or you don't. That's it. And number two, the second reason why nuance variations are very important and also tricky at the same time is some people could say, well, yes, okay, yes, these versions exist, but how often would I use them? Now, actually, yes, nuance variations, not just with colors, but with all words are used very, 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 very often. So in Korean, if let's say, I'm looking at a red, some kind of red, and it's very vivid, I'm not gonna think, oh yeah, there is 새빨갛다, I know that it exists, but I don't have to use it, so I'm just gonna use 빨갛다. Of course, there are people like that, but usually people will go to that variation. So that's why it's not just that. You can kind of forget about them, just know that they exist because they will only be said like once or twice a year. No, that's not the case. If people feel like they get any kind of a chance to use a variation, they will go for it. Okay, so now that's what we will talk about today. Nuance variations. In other words, play with words. So always keep in mind the reason why this is tricky. Number one, you don't get a clue or hint. Number two, so therefore you know the version or you don't. That's it. And number two, they are used very, very 자주. Okay. So now we're just going to take a look into a couple of situations in which these variations will come into play and they will really, really help you, yes, understand the full context. What are you feeling? What are your intentions? What do you want me to do? So understanding all the underlying messages in a conversation, because in a real life situation, a real life communication between two sentient people, nuance that allows us to understand underlying messages, that's everything. Okay, so now, for example, let's take a look at red. So 빨갛다 would just be a basic red. Yeah, I'm just saying red. I'm not trying to imbue any kind of a nuance. Okay, so for example, if someone says, let's test if you're colorblind. What color is this? I'm not trying to say that it's, oh, very vivid, or, oh, that's scary. Oh, I'm trying to be playful. I'm trying to be poetic. It's not very vivid. No, it's not about imbuing nuance. I'm just answering a simple question. So I'm going to say 빨갛다. Of course, I don't want a display form, but anyway, I'll use this version of red and I'll inflect it. Okay. However, let's actually place ourselves in a situation. let's say I'm very, very tired today. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call my friend and I'm going to say, 오늘 very, a version of very, 되게, okay, 피곤하다. But of course, I don't want a display form. I have to inflect it into 피곤해요, right? Inflection route number 1. Okay, 오늘 되게 피곤해요. So I'm going to call my friend and I'm going to say this. 오늘 되게 피곤해요. So usually, when I am 피곤해요, my eyes are bloodshot. So they are very red. So my 친구 happens to be a 의사. My 친구 is a 의사. Doctor. Okay, so my friend is going to check on me, of course, over the phone. He's not physically with me. So he's gonna ask, oh, are your eyes red again? Are they bloodshot? So now my friend is going to be concerned because usually they get super, super red. So yes, my eyes, when they are tired, this is what they look like. Okay, so I'm this tired. I'm not just a little tired, I'm this tired. So this is what I usually look like, 보통, when I am 피곤해요. So my friend is gonna say, oh, are your eyes super, super bloodshot again? And now I don't want my friend to overreact. So I'm gonna say, yeah, don't worry too much. I mean, yeah, they are a little bloodshot, but it's not super, super red. Then, now let's close our eyes. Let's close our eyes. Let's imagine that I am the one on the phone talking to my doctor friend, 의사 친구. Now, if you don't want my friend to start going crazy and giving me like 50 things to do, like a list of 50 things to do, saying, yeah, oh, if your eyes are bloodshot, it means that this is happening to you. You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. Send me a picture of this. If I don't want my friend to start overreacting like that, I want to give off the nuance that I'm not going to just completely lie and say they are not red at all, but at least I'm going to say, yeah, it's not that bad. So I want to give off the nuance that it is red, but not a very vivid kind of red. So I'm going to say 불그스름하다. So this is when, yes, nuance variations come in very, very handy. 불그스름하다. So let's try to say something like, they are red. But I'm going to give off the nuance that it's not that vivid. So don't worry. Okay, so let's try to do this. Now we have a bridge, right? We have the so bridge. And so is not, well, whenever we see a bridge, what is the first thing that we have to do? Yes, identify whether it's a reverse bridge or not. Now, so is not a reverse bridge, right? So we're going to go by the same order. Yes, I'm sorry, they are red. Yes, so they are red, of course, my eyes. We're going to start with the first sentence and then the bridge and then the second sentence. If we did have a reverse bridge, I would have had the order between the two sentences reversed, right? But that's not the case right now. So of course, in the first sentence, no they, of course, I'm talking about my eyes. And then no is, am, was, were, are. And I'm going to carefully pick which version of red that I will use. In this case, yes, I'm going to use 불그스름하다. The last one, 불그스름하다. Okay, so now the second thing that you have to keep in mind when you see a bridge, so is the fact that a bridge is never ever an independent standalone, right? It has to become a part of the word right in front of it as its ending. So I'm going to give the not vivid version red the so ending. So now we have the predicative adjective read so. So that means that, of course, I don't want the ta ending, I want the so ending. So let's go to inflection route number 2 to go get it. And we know what to say, right? We know exactly what to say. 감사합니다, right? To inflection route number 2, of course, because we get a free pass. Thank you, 감사합니다, for the free pass. Why is that? Because the inflection rules of inflection route number 2, if the display form that you are using ends with a vowel, once ta is removed, any kind of a vowel that is, you get a free pass, which means all you have to do is remove ta and then immediately attach the ending. How convenient is that? So, 불그스름하다. So the reason why we are in inflection route number 2 is because we have the 니까 ending, the so ending. Okay, so I'm going to apply a free pass. Thank you. You get a lot of free passes in poetic Korean, but not as many in real Korean. So let's enjoy when we have one. So remove ta, and then 니까. Okay, 불그스름하니까. Exactly, and no H, right? I'm not going to give the H an H sound. It's going to be practically silent because now it's, well, not now, it is somewhere in the middle of a word, right? So 불그스름하니까. It's not going to be 불그스름하니까. Okay, 불그스름하니까. So read so, but a version that automatically gives off the nuance that it's not a very vivid type of read. Yeah, we will look into other colors too, of course. Don't worry about that. Okay, 불그스름하니까. So now we have read so, and then, wait, first. Now, okay, now we finished the first sentence. Now, 다리 건너요, cross the bridge. Read so, and then we have on the other side, don't worry, the verb don't worry. Of course, we have now 3 versions of don't that you can place in front of a verb, right? 3 ways you can do it. And of course, you have to pick and choose which you're going to use. Yes. Now, the reason why, that actually ties into something that I just explained. Now, the reason why it's very dangerous to try to understand these variations by attaching a suffix like ish or something is the fact that, yes, a suffix is a clue, a hint that tells you what you are talking about because, yes, ish can work in all cases, right? Not just with the color red, but these variations, once again, they don't give you a clue or hint because you either know it or you don't. Because it's not giving you any kind of a suffix or adding some kind of a word. If it does, that would be a very, very convenient clue. However, in this case, for example, if someone says, well then, is 으스름, for example, I'm just pointing at a random part of it, does 름 mean like ish or something? So can I attach it to other words too? Like, for example, if someone says, is it super scary? And I'm gonna say like, not like really scary. Maybe you can say it's like scary-ish. Yeah, you can't do it like that. You can't say like 무섭. I don't even know how to do it. 무섭름하다 or something like that. That does not even exist. So that's why I say these variations are tricky because you don't get a hint. Okay, so you either know it or you don't. Okay, so 불그스름하니까. Now, of course, the 3 versions of don't plus verb, we know exactly which version we will use, right? Of course, people who have been attending these lives. Number 1, 안 plus verb. Number 2, place the verb and then give it the 지 않아요 ending. And of course, this would be the poetic trap, right? Yes, exactly. We need version number 3, verb 지 마요. Exactly. So number 3 is functionally speaking completely in its own lane, right? Because it's the version that you have to use when you are telling someone not to do something. Okay, so yes, for example, let's say some kids are running around at a pool and it's slippery, therefore dangerous. Now, so I want to tell them, hey, don't run. Then of course I need version number 3. But let's say I didn't know that. I saw that this is don't, so I thought I could use this. So I took don't and I inflected 뛰다 into 뛰어요. So now you have don't run. Yeah, it's still don't run. The translation is the same, but I am not telling someone not to run. I'm just saying I don't run. Okay, so if I look at these children who are running around in the pool, I want to tell them, hey, don't run, it's dangerous. But if I keep saying 안 뛰어요, 안 뛰어요, 안 뛰어요, what would the kids say? They would say, huh? We never asked you to run with us. So yeah, just leave us alone. We're having fun running around. We never asked you to run with us. Why are you saying I don't run? Does that make sense? So that's why you have to know exactly which version you have to use as don't. Exactly, yes. Okay, so yeah, we need this. So 지마요 is a no route ending, so all we have to do is place the display form of the verb 걱정하다, a version of worry. Oops, not enough space, but let's make it work. And because the 지마요 is a no route ending, yes, you get to immediately attach it, right? You remove 다, and then you immediately attach it. 걱정하지 마요. So now we have the whole 문장. So at first, well, 천천히 읽을게요. Okay, 천천히 읽을게요. I will read it slowly. 불그스름하니까 걱정하지 마요. 불그스름하니까 걱정하지 마요. 불그스름하니까 걱정하지 마요. So they are red, but not a very vivid type of red, so don't worry. Does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay. So, yes, once again, the reason why it's tricky is because you don't get a clue. So don't try to find some kind of a pattern that applies to all other adjectives as well. So, yes, once again, yes. Now, for example, if you try to think of it as a suffix and say, well, does 새 mean very vivid? So, can I say, oh, like, for example, the stars are very vivid or whatever is very vivid. Can I say 새별? It doesn't work like that. Yes, so it's not a pattern, a suffix, or an added word that gives you a clear hint or clue. So that's why I keep on emphasizing you either know it or you don't. Okay, so for example, let's say I have never used colors. So let's say I'm Tarzan. I'm just getting used to, let's say, civilization. So I never thought, I didn't know the word red. So, but let's say I did learn the word dark though, because, I was reading a book. I'm just starting to read and write. I did read a book and it said the dark sky filled with stars was beautiful, whatever. So if someone says dark red, well then, even though I'm not really knowledgeable on how to say colors, I can still tell what kind of red you're saying. Dark red, a dark version of red, because you just gave me a clue. You just blatantly said dark. Okay, but once again, you don't get something like that. Okay, now let's take a look into another example in which these variations can come in very, very handy. So this time, let's say we have grapes. 포도. We have grapes, 포도. So let's say they look like this. Okay, so grapes. 포도. Now, but I don't want these grapes. As a matter of fact, I don't think anyone should have these grapes because I think they might have gone moldy a little bit. Because I see blue spots here and there, which weren't there at first. Okay, so I'm gonna tell my friend is gonna say, well, yeah, let's finish the grapes that we have. And I'm gonna say, maybe we should have finished them 4 days ago or something. And my friend says, why do you say that? They look fine. And I'm gonna say, what? They look fine to you? I'm gonna say, it doesn't look fine to me. Yeah, so I'm gonna say, the color, let's just say color, is blue. I mean, look at it. It's supposed to be purple. It's blue. Okay, so now we're talking about moldy grapes. Now, is that usually something positive or negative? Do you like eating something that went moldy? Does it make you feel good or does it make you sick? Exactly, it's usually negative. Exactly, so let's go to blue then. Now, another aspect of using these color variations, I said, it's very important because I'm not saying there is a basic form that people usually use, but these variations exist. But they are not really used that often because the basic form exists. That's not the case. Whenever someone thinks that they have a chance of using a variation because the nuance fits the context, they will go for it. So they are used 되게 자주, very often. So now, usually when you see mold, yeah, in the form of blue, it's not like this kind of blue, right? It's not that vivid. So let's say I'm gonna say it's not very vivid and it's usually negative, right? If you see mold, it's usually not like this kind of blue. It's not like this, well, the super vivid type of blue. Yeah, it's usually not very vivid and it is something negative. So I'm gonna say 퍼렇다. Okay, so how are we going to do it then? I'm gonna tell my friend, my 친구, oh, what? Are you serious? You're really saying that it looks fine? And my friend says, yeah, what's wrong with them? I'm gonna say, well, look at them. The color is blue. Okay, so no the and no is. We have the subject color and we have the predicative adjective blue. Okay, because blue is a color that you can use as an adjective, right? Okay, now first of all, this is something that we will talk about in the 6th class of this course. However, let's take a glimpse into it. Now, those who have the PDF file, can you please take a look into page number, wait, what's happening here? 10. Yes. So a part of the color course is, of course, how do you say red? How do you say blue? How do you say pink? How do you say gray? But a part of it is, how do you say the word color, though, to begin with? Now, some of you might remember when we were going through the number course, also, we first started with how to say number, not how to say 3 or 16 or 25. So, when it comes to saying the word color, how to say the word color. Now, we are going to talk about it again when we get to page number 10, but right now, I'm just going to say that we're going to use a basic version. 색 or 색깔. Now, there is, of course, if I were to be like if I were to really split hairs, I can say there can be a little bit of a difference between the two, nuance-wise, but for now, I'll just say, yes, these are the basic versions that you can use when you are not really giving off a specific kind of nuance. For example, 색상, professional, 색채, professional plus artistic, 색조, professional, artistic, and sensitive, 빛깔 is a little bit outdated. It was used up until, well, let's say my grandparents' generation, or maybe some people in my parents' generation. Okay, so for example, let's say there's a police officer, and this police officer is asking me a question. Hey, someone is on the run. Now, they were in a car, and did a car, pass by here in like crazy speed? And I'm gonna say, yeah, I did. I did see a car that was driving, yes, oddly fast. So the police officer asks me, what was the color of the car? Now in that case, if I say 색채 or 색조, now it has an artistic and even a sensitive nuance to it. So it kind of makes me sound like I'm saying like, it was very aesthetic and yeah, it was very overwhelmingly beautiful. Now the police officer would say, hey, just tell me the color. I'm not like at a museum here, just tell me the color. So 색채 and 색조 would not really fit that situation. I should say 색상, or maybe 색 or 색깔, because they are basic versions that work in most cases. But if not, because that's a professional situation, I'm talking to a police officer. And yes, then 색상 would be much better. Does that make sense? So that's why they are all used in a little bit of a different way. They each have their own nuance. Okay. So right now, I'm not trying to be professional and I'm not trying to be artistic either or sensitive. So I'm just going to say 색 or 색깔. Let's just say 색. Okay. Now, we have the subject color. I can move on, but I want to give it a subject particle. Am I going to give it a subject particle just because it is the subject? Of course not. That's what you do in poetic Korean. Okay, so in real Korean, you don't use these particles unless you have a very specific reason. And yes, I want to use it for reason number 2, in order to automatically imbue the nuance of frustration. So my friend keeps saying, just eat it. They look fine. So I'm gonna say, huh? What are you talking about? Do you not see it? Am I going crazy or are you going crazy? So I'm gonna give it a subject particle to automatically imbue the nuance of a little bit of frustration. It doesn't have to be like a very aggressive type of frustration, even if it's very playful, still a level of frustration. So 색이, and then now, yes, let's say blue, but a negative version of blue, 퍼렇다. Not very vivid, plus negative, 퍼렇다. Okay, 퍼렇다. Now, I don't want the ta ending. I don't want the display form. I want some kind of an ending that actually has a grammatical function or attribute. Okay, so right now, because the main topic is colors, I'm not going to go into super complicated inflections as often. Of course, we do have to sometimes because everything boils down to inflection at the end of the day, but this time let's use a no-route ending. So we're going to use the 잖아요 ending. When is the 잖아요 ending used? Yes, when I am imbuing the nuance of I am saying something that you already know as well, or at least should know as well. So I'm saying, what? You should know why I'm saying I don't want these grapes. Are you not looking at them right now? They're blue. Come on. Okay, so I'm saying 색이 퍼렇잖아요. Okay, blue. But once again, I am imbuing a whole bunch of nuance into it. I am saying something that you already know or at least should know. You should know that it's blue. You're looking at them. And it's not just blue, it's a not very vivid negative kind of blue. So we have the whole 문장 천천히 읽을게요. 색이 퍼렇잖아요. 색이 퍼렇잖아요. 색이 퍼렇잖아요. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 계속할까요? Should we continue? Okay. Now this time, let's change the situation once again. This time, my friend has a cute little dog. My 친구 has a 강아지, but he has to go away for a while. So he wants me to stay at his house to look after his dog. His dog does not like being 혼자, alone. Okay, so yeah, I'm staying at my friend's place with his little dog. And now one day, I'm in a room and I think I smell pee. Okay, but it's kind of hard to tell because let's say the floor is yellow to begin with. Okay, so I think I smell it somewhere. I'm not really sure. Okay, so I'm gonna call my friend and ask him, well, and I'm gonna share the story. Hey, I think I smell pee somewhere. Does he sometimes do it? Does he have like a secret spot? Okay, so my friend is going to say, well, look at the floor. Floor, a version of it, 바닥, and then 보다, look, or look at. So of course, my friend will not say the display form of it. We need to inflect it according to inflection route number 1, right? If something ends with O, then you form a double vowel and then attach the ending. So my friend will say, 바닥 봐요. Look at the floor. 바닥 봐요. And then he's going to say, 그냥, and then I don't think it's showing that clear, right? So I'm not going to use yellow. Just imagine that it's yellow. Yes, I know that it's not yellow. Just imagine that it is. 그냥 노랗다. Okay, so let's go to yellow. 노랗다. Oops. So he's going to use a basic form because he's saying, is it just yellow? So without any kind of a, yes, specific, and not like a very specific version of it. Is it just yellow? So because the floor is yellow. So therefore he's going to use 노랗다. Okay, so he's going to say, yes, 그냥 노래요. Of course, inflection route number 1, right? 그냥 노래요. And then I'm going to answer, I'm going to look very carefully and I'm going to say, oh, I think he did pee here because it's not just yellow, it's a little bit of a, yes, dirty, yes, because usually, of course, we're not being mean, yeah, but it is not the cleanest situation, right? Yes, so a little bit of a dirty version of it, but yeah, let's be a little bit playful because we're talking about a cute little dog. Okay, things happen with dogs, so let's not be too angry about it. So I'm gonna say, oh, it's not just yellow, it's a dirty and a little bit of a playful version of yellow. So 누리끼리하다. Okay, so I'm gonna say, oh, my friend says 그냥 노래요. I'm gonna say 아니요. Oh no, it's not just yellow. Now that I look carefully, I can see that it's 누리끼리하다. 누리끼리하다. Okay, but of course I don't want its display form. Let's go to inflection route number 1 to go get the yo ending, the actual form, present tense ending. Okay. So we know exactly what to do, right? We know exactly what to do. It's not too much of a challenge, right? Yes. We are in inflection route number 1 because of the yo ending, and of course, because the display form that we are using ends with the ha syllable, Once ta is removed, we're going to apply a three-step formula. 누리끼리하다. Okay, so remove ta, change ha into he, and then 드디어 you can attach the ending. And of course, I am not going to give the H and H sound. It's going to be silent. Okay, so exactly. 누리끼리예요. So yellow, but a little bit of a dirty, but in a playful version. A little bit of a dirty and playful version of yellow. 누리끼리예요. Okay. So therefore, in this type of a situation, I found the perfect version of yellow because it is dirty, because it's something that I have to clean. I'm not just going to leave it there. But also, I don't want to be too mean about it. So, because we're talking about a dog, things happen. So I'm going to imbue a little bit of a playful nuance to it. So I don't have to sound playful. I don't have to act playful. I can just let my friend and the dog know that, hey, yes, I know that you peed here, but I'm not like super seriously mad. Yes, by using the playful version of yellow. So 아니요, 누리끼리예요. 아니요, 누리끼리예요. So my friend can say, look at the floor. Is it just yellow? 바닥 봐요. 그냥 노래요? I'm gonna say, 아니요, 누리끼리예요. So I guess he did pee. Okay, does that make sense? If it does, 넘어갈까요? Should we move on? Okay. So, yes, I'm sorry to harp on the same thing over and over again, but it is important to have this idea fully understood and ingrained in your mind. So I will just repeat it just one last time. Please bear with me. Okay, so once again, the reason why these variations can be a little bit tricky, there are two reasons, right? Number one, you don't get a clue, you don't get a hint, which means that, yes, you don't get an extra word or you don't get a suffix. For example, yes, you could say, well, I do see some kind of a pattern here. 푸르스름하다, 붉으스름하다. So I guess this 스름 must be something somewhat of a suffix or something like that I can use in all cases. That's not the case. That's why I'm saying you don't get a clue. For example, let's say you try to think of it as ish or something, bluish, reddish. Okay, now I can't use it outside of colors. And I can only use it with red or blue. On the other hand, if I say like scary red or reddish, the word scary can be used in all cases. Yeah, I can say a scary movie. I'm not talking about colors. A scary movie, a scary voice, a scary whatever. It was scary-ish. I can say, it's not super heavy. It's kind of heavy-ish though. So if you get an extra word or suffix that clearly indicates what kind of a red you're talking about, that's giving you a clue or hint. But once again, that's not the case here. You don't get a hint, you don't get an extra word, so you either know it or you don't. Okay, so that's the first reason why it can be a little bit tricky. The second reason is, yes, you can't say, well, these versions, these variations do exist, but now, just a basic version of blue or red, for example, it can cover most situations, right? So do people really use it that often? Go out of their way to use a variation? They go out of their way all the time. So if I just get a chance of using any of them, I will go for it. Okay, so you give me just a little bit of a chance to use it, I will go for it. Okay, so, and plus the poetic versions, once again, just don't use them at all, unless you are a poet or something. Okay, 푸르다 and 붉다 would be the poetic traps here. And also 푸르르다. Okay, poetic, but in a satisfying way, but still poetic. Okay, so now we will play with these words. We will play with these variations one more time. So tomorrow, yes, we will do this one more time. Build a lot of sentences in all sorts of situations. to, yes, imbue the right nuance within the given situation one more time. And tomorrow we will use white and black as well too.